Hi guys, I'm Mama Bear to Many. I am mom to 14 children. 12 of my children still live here at home. And I've gotten asked the question a couple times now, how I know how much to feed my family. So I wanted to just kind of go over that real quick. Real quick. We'll see. Okay. So one is you don't just give birth to 14 children at the same time. So it's not like I went from feeding 2 people to feeding, 14 people daily, or even like when other people were home, 15, 16, whatever, however many people like in one day. You don't just go from going from like one, you gradually work your way up as each child comes along. Most of the time, children come in ones. Sometimes they come in twos. All of our children are singletons, so we had a new baby and then we would just increase. So it just over the years, you just gradually increase, or you learn to change things around a little bit so you can stretch out different things. Like throughout the years, I've used lentils and beans and rice and that type of stuff to stretch out meals. So you just learn how to stretch things out like as you go along, as you have children. I feel like God gives you that gift if he's going to give you your family. Like he just gives you that gift if you pray over things, that he'll just bless you with that. I have a principle in my household and in my life, and it is based on scripture that we should be hospitable to other people. And I personally feel that we should be ready to show hospitality to if somebody comes to our door. So if somebody came to our door around a mealtime, then I would open my door and invite them in to have a meal with us. That's just how I feel that we should be as Christians. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I don't think that everyone has to do that. God's going to show you, like in your own way, how you can be hospitable. So in my life, I feel like I should always be ready to be hospitable in the area of food. That may not be your household, that may not be your family, and that's okay. I've just felt that like for our household and our family, and over the years, it has blessed us abundantly. I have had people stop by around a mealtime and we've just really had a good fellowship. Or maybe like people know that about me, friends have known that about me, and they've just been able to come over. And I remember this one woman, her son had died tragically, and she came over quite a bit at meal times to come have a meal just with the family because she was just really struggling. And I was glad that we could be there and we could be that family just to be there for her. I feel blessed by that. So, yeah, I think that we should just be ready to do that. So, practicality purposes. How do I know now that I have 12 children still at home, how to feed those people and be ready to feed more? So, I feel like I should always cook enough to have leftovers. So I know that sounds so weird, but we can eventually later on in the week do a leftover day and just throw them all together, or make a soup out of it, or make a casserole, or make something out of the leftovers. But if I'm always ready to have leftovers, then 2 things happen. One is my children are always fed and they always get enough real food that later on they don't want to snack. I think sometimes in large families, parents try to say, okay, well, I'm going to cook, enough for everyone to have a hamburger, and then later on their kids are wanting to snack a lot, and maybe they have like free snacking at their house. I do not say, hey, go in the fridge whenever you want to go in the fridge. We have 3 snacks a day, or 3 in between meals a day for people that need or want them. But those are designated for what they're going to be, and most of those are real food. If somebody is older and wants something else, they'll just come to me and be like, hey, can I have an apple and peanut butter? Can I have a banana? There's certain things like in the house that are kind of allowed to, hey, yeah, go ahead, When my son was in sports, he was in public school for his high school years. When he was in sports, I would always have leftovers for him, and I would always let him know, you can always have peanut butter and jelly. You can always have, at that time, I would buy him top ramen because he really liked that. I don't really buy that now, but in that season, that's what I did. So there was certain things that he could have or make for himself that if he was hungry, he could have that. I think a lot of times that some people want to limit the amount of food that's going throughout a meal, and then it becomes expensive because the snacks are expensive. Overall, snacks are more expensive than regular food, right? And then they're not getting full. You don't get really full on a snack because it's not like real food. Most of the time, snacks that people have are like processed snacks, which just allow you to, which leaves you depleted of nutrition. So therefore they want to snack more and more and more and more and more. So kids are wanting to constantly snack and snack and snack and snack. You see this a lot of times too with toddlers, like they want to snack and snack and snack and snack, and then they don't want a meal. My toddlers and younger kids do get more things, probably some days, than older people, but we do also make sure, like, you're going to eat this bit of your food in order to get a snack. So our rule is if you don't eat like a certain amount of your food, then you won't get a snack. They can not eat any of their food and walk away. I'm not going to force them to eat the food at the table, but you're not going to get a snack after. You can wait until the next meal and then eat your food. So that also is a way to get your kids to eat. A lot of times people struggle, well, I can't get my kids to eat. A lot of times they'll bring their plate over to me if it's something, whatever. Okay, how about you try one bite of this and one bite of this? And if you do that, then you can have snack. And then usually, like, once you do that when they're younger, they'll start to eat it, and then they're like, oh, I do like that. And then they have a lot bigger palate, and then they get their snack and they're good. So as far as actual numbers of things that I would use to feed my family, let's see, we use, it depends on what the meat is and how it is used. We use 4 to 6 pounds of meat per meal. So if we were making like meatloaf, it's usually like 2.5 pounds per meatloaf. If we were making hamburgers, it's about 5. So I would say that we average 5, but sometimes we would like stretch whatever out. Like if we're putting, say, taco meat over salad, I can do 4. And that's scrambled because we're adding so many toppings that are filling as well. So it just depends on what we are eating and how long that will do. Now, those 4 or 5 pounds, 6 pounds even, will be enough for leftovers. So I think if we were to actually cut it down to what we actually eat, it's not going to be that. But we plan on doing leftovers like all the time. Like I can't even remember the last time we ate like all of our food, like all the food that I prepared, unless it was a leftover day. And if it's a leftover day, it's kind of like a whole smorgasbord of things. And then I would have all the leftovers. And then I also would add usually salad and usually fruit. And then kids would pick whatever they wanted in that scenario. And, or just depending on how much we have, I would add pickled beets or pickles or all those things that I can just pull cans up from the basement. So as far as vegetables, I try to do 1 quart of pickled vegetables or sauerkraut or something like that at a meal. And then I also would do, like, if I was having like a meat inside, then I also would do a couple cans, probably like 2 to 3 quarts of vegetables. So I would do that, and then most of the time we would have a side salad on top of that. Other times, if I was doing, say, like a pot of soup, I would do about 4 pounds of meat and, let's see, maybe 8 to 10 quarts of vegetables in there. And then possibly, depends, if I had potatoes in there, then I wouldn't put rice. If I didn't have potatoes, I would put rice, or I'd cook rice, and then we'd have like the soup on top of the rice. Just different ways to like grow it out or stretch it out or whatever. Let me try to think. But if it was something like a starchy type soup, like a butternut squash soup, then it would just be butternut squash, and that would be like about 8 quarts of butternut squash. I'm trying to think of other things that we would eat and how much we would actually eat of that. Let me see. I can't think, to be honest with you. That's pretty much how we do it. I always want leftovers. I always plan for leftovers. It can bless my family later on in the week, and if somebody stopped by, then I would have enough food to feed them and not feel uncomfortable like, hey, you can't eat here. And that goes from people like my older son and his wife, or my mother, or whoever, like the neighbor, you know, somebody who comes to pick up pigs, you know, like whoever. Like if it's around supper time, I'm just going to be like, hey, we're about ready to eat. Would you like to come join us? And that's just how we have it. That's how we plan to do it. I know that it might sound like a lot, but I think that it just over years, it just gradually grew, and always having that philosophy. So if a child starts to, say if a child is, another question that was asked was, if a child starts to get older and eating more food, do I need to like adjust things? Well, I do need to adjust things, but I would notice that as far as having less leftovers. I wouldn't need to adjust it as far as children being hungry at the end of a meal. Like I've shared in other videos, like I've known hunger, and I never want my kids to know hunger that way. So I would, if I noticed like less leftovers starting to come about, then what I would do is I would just start increasing at that point so that I would have those leftovers, and there'd be no days or times where like it would just be depleted, because I'd notice that gradually. The amount that I cook over would probably be enough. It really depends on the meal. If I was cooking like a casserole, I usually would just like cook a whole nother casserole with that. If I noticed that like the whole casserole is getting used, then I would like just cook a second casserole and then have leftovers for the rest. If, for instance, I make soup in an Instapot, if I make soup in an Instapot and it's completely gone, well, I need 2 Instapots. And I do. I almost 100% of the time, I need 2 Instapots, unless I'm making chili and I'm having like a baked potato or something underneath the chili, then I need 1 Instapot. Most of the time I need 2 Instapots full of soup. Now, do we eat all 2 Instapots of soup? No. We eat about 1 Instapot and a quarter of the second Instapot, which then, depending on the day, I might end up doing 2 Instapots for lunch and then eating the 1 normally, and then in the afternoon I might add something else to it. I might say, okay, we're having soup with carrot sticks and peanut butter and possibly a muffin, and that's how I would stretch it for 2 meals. So just little tips that I have learned, like, let's just do that. And then say somebody came and I had that that scenario, and we were just going to have the rest of the soup and the carrot sticks and the and the muffins, and another family came and stopped by the house, then probably what I would do is I would go down in the basement and I would grab some other home canned soups, and I'd film or stuff to make home canned soups. Because if you take, let's just say somebody came by and you weren't preparing and whatever, I can make things really quick. I can turn another Instapot on. I can put beef chunks that I've already canned. I can put potatoes, I can put carrots, I can put green beans and a can of broth in that Instapot, put it on saute, or put it on the top of the stovetop, put it on saute, and or slow or whatever, and 10 minutes later I have something to go with it. So then it would just be, oh, we're having soup night tonight, hey, would you like to join us? And then somebody would be able to join your household and your family for that meal. So that's how I do things, and that is how I feed my family, and that's kind of like the philosophy I've had for years, because I never want somebody to go hungry. So that is how I feel. And yeah, if you have any more questions or any questions about this video that I didn't cover, please leave those in the comments below. Thanks.